That's really beautiful. Thank you all for joining us today from wherever you're joining. Welcome. Welcome to all. I'm Marta Ceroni. I'm connecting from New Hampshire, and I work at the Academy for Systems Change. And I'm really excited to be here with you. I recognize some of the faces here, my dear colleagues at Co-Creative and friends that I've made during the series. So welcome to all. I just want to spend a moment to talk about why we're here and where this idea of delving deeper into the inquiry of well-being came from. And it came from a desire that was, I feel, collectively felt, but also in particular with my colleagues at Co-Creative to really inquire into the deeper roots of the work of social change and the work that we're doing in the world, possibly not coming actually from a sense of fixing things, but actually trying to tap and reach for the deeper conditions that allow to create different realities for ourselves and realities that are rooted in well-being as opposed to a sense of scarcity. And so realities that are rooted in a sense of abundance, in a sense of replenishment, so that our work becomes closer and closer to life and it feels life-giving and enlivening, so that we don't have to find additional energy on top of all that is required of us to do the work. So from that deeper inspiration of finding the roots of our well-being individually and collectively, we want to explore what also means to create community around it. We can't do this work alone. And the work of creating well-being for ourselves. There's something resistance-like, as we will see in this session, about creating conditions of well-being. So we want to have a whole community here, and it's happening as each time that we meet. That means also connecting across our respective networks of work and deepening into the collaborative work that we're all doing. And so I'm particularly excited that this conversation is going to get us to a really deep and grounding place with Norma Wong, whom I welcome wholeheartedly here in this space. And we'll share more about all the work that is inspiring Norma very soon. And just a word about the Academy for Systems Change. And so we are an organization that articulates the vision of well-being as a transformation of systems towards a future rooted in love that holds dignity, equity, belonging, and thriving for all life. And so we contribute collectively, again, we're not alone, to this vision by focusing on relationships that are trust-filled and that are focused on multiple sources of knowing in each time that we create community, and that focus on deepening the capacities for systems change. And there's more that I can share about it, but that's not about us today, really. So Heather, take it from here for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. Hey, everybody. Heather Equinox with Co-Creative here, alongside Academy for Systems Change. We are glad to co-host this series. So if you don't know us, Co-Creative, we help people. Sometimes we describe our work as helping people who don't know each other and sometimes don't even like each other to collaborate for systemic change. So often our work focuses on issues of equity, often around racial and economic equity, and also ecological sustainability. So we help support networks, and we help support leaders of collaborative change making. And what we hoped actually to cover, to set up a little bit of the work for today, we wanted to just name the kind of space or the quality of space we were aiming to hold today. So one is, we welcome your whole selves today. So anything that's going on for you in your background, in your life, pets, kids, all the things, we welcome that in this space. We believe that even though we are joining virtually and physically distant from one another, we can still create spaces that are deeply intimate. And so that's our aim for today. To those ends, if it's at all possible for you to have videos on so we can see you and sense into where you are in this space, that would be really helpful. We also recognize there's bandwidth issues and all kinds of other things that might come in the way of that. But if it's possible for you, we welcome it. We are going to record this session. It's going to be 90 minutes long. And the general flow is this. After just connecting briefly as a whole group using Slido, that will happen in just a moment, we'll introduce Norma. And Norma has agreed to lead us in a resonant breathing practice. We're going to then dive into a conversation with Norma. It's going to be really freeform. We're just going to see what emerges. Marta and I will likely have a few questions for Norma, but then we're also going to be opening it up to this group using Slido to generate and upvote different questions that you all might have for Norma. So we'll be in conversation with Norma for most of this call, and then we'll head out briefly into some breakout rooms just for you all to have a chance to share and witness with and for one another what's coming up for you. And then we'll come back together again. We'll have just a few closing notes, but then stick around to the end because Norma's agreed to close this session out with another breathing practice. So that's the general flow. Good enough? Cool. Marta, back over to you.
Great. So now, as a way to start arriving in the space, we have 3 questions for you in Slido that will give us a sense collectively of who's in the room. And so just in a moment, actually you already have a link in the chat, amazing. So your name and one gift that you're bringing to our work together today, where you're joining from today, and one value that consistently forms your life and your work. And then we'll just harvest a little bit from there. How are folks feeling? Are we ready to start sharing some of the things that are coming? It's beautiful to see names, the values, the presence, the gift that you bring, curiosity, gratitude, listening under the surface, beginner's mind, beautiful. I saw Mayo's lemon just accidentally, and that sounds really good. I'd love to taste those. We are from different places, connecting to different places. Ghana, Accra, Ghana, West Florida, Virginia, Ashland, Oregon. I saw Ontario, and I didn't get to read the Treaty Land. Sandy Hook, Connecticut, Brooklyn, and love shows up as a big value that informs our work, but also dignity, interdependence, aloha, wonderful, solidarity. Let emotions move through me. Well-being, yes. Vulnerability. This is all really, really beautiful and grounding here already. And with that, I just want to move the ball and pass it on to Heather for the next segment. Thank you for all beautiful contributions here.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. So we're really excited. Norma said yes to join us here today. You received a longer version of the many things that Norma has done in her life. And so I will lift up just a few highlights that, Norma has decades of experience in organizing, in policy work, in strategy, in political life in the state of Hawaii. Particularly has done significant work around issues of great importance to Native Hawaiians within the state, and has served in the Hawaii State Legislature. As we noted, Norma is also an 86th generation Zen master and has trained for over 40 years. She's a thought partner, she's a strategist, she's a teacher. She's authored a soon-to-be released book that hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit about, When No Things Work. And Russ and I in Co-Creative had a chance to have a more personal experience with Norma pretty recently in a network that we've supported called the Governance Futures Network. That network met in Hawaii in May, and one of the many things that Norma brought forth in that gathering was she shared several resonant breathing practices with the group. And it helped us attune, I would say, both internally within ourselves, and it also helped us attune across the group of 70 or so people that were present. And what I felt, and I think others expressed as well, was it created this felt sense of interconnectedness, that we were collectively part of a larger heart and nervous system in a good way. And at least for us in Co-Creative, we're always curious about how we can create the conditions for people to come together, align around a shared intent, and collaboratively lead change. And we sense that, Norma has many powerful practices that support individuals and groups to those ends. And so we're really excited that, Norma, you said yes to join us today and share your experience and some of your practices. So thanks for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Aloha, everyone. Aloha. I know that some of you are in the daylight hours and some of you are in the evening hours, wherever it is that you may be. I am coming to you from a place that I was born. It is called Kalihi Maka, Kalihi that is close to the mountains, but not of the mountains. We're actually in the valley, in this Kalihi Valley. So I'm a valley girl from the island of Oahu, which sits in the Hawaiian archipelago. I am privileged in that I was born in a place where the name of that place has never changed. And so although there are people who came in the 1700s and then in the 1800s, that we lost our governance, local governance, our native governance. Although the flag is different, we still call this place the same place that my people have called from time immemorial. As you can see from my face, I am Asian, and I am also Native Hawaiian, which is something you might not see from my face. Being Asian and Native Hawaiian, and Hakka, which is one of the Aboriginal people of China. So being of China and being a native of this place would be a very common thing that would happen in Hawaii, as my Chinese ancestors would have come here the first 25 years as contract workers, only men would come here. So if you do the math and you know something about science, then you would understand that someone who arrived at that earlier time, that you would be of mixed ancestry. We consider that mix to be the kind of thing that we ought to be. There are many people in the state, this place, the Hawaiian archipelago, who are mixed ancestry very proudly of the various mixes. Everyone here can pretty much rattle off in the order of the ancestry that you identify with the most. So though I am more Chinese ancestry than Hawaiian, I definitely call myself a Hawaiian Chinese because that is where I identify the most with my indigenous roots. So we're going to begin actually with a breath practice. It seems it would be very odd to me that we would begin a conversation about spaciousness without breathing together. I know that all of you are in different spaces. So you may be in a public space or a private space. You may be able, because of those things, to resonate. And by resonate, I mean by actually humming and giving voice to vowels, or you may not be able to. But if you are in a space or where you are able to, I invite you to give resonance to this breath, not only to breathe or to go through the motions of the breath. So we are going to give motion to the breath. This particular iteration will give the sunrise version, which means that we will clasp your hands like this and bring it down where it lands, which would be somewhere around your belly and probably somewhere a little below your belly. For most of us, that's how our arms are built by nature. And then we're going to inhale. And as we inhale, we're going to just bring our arms, our hands up above just as high as it can, while still keeping a circular sense of it. So if you raise it too high, right, then you will be as if you're hanging rather than you are a part of both the heaven and the earth, right? And then we're going to release our clasp and bring our arms down by our side until they're by our belly. And this will be exhaling. Then we will reverse it, which means that we'll inhale, bringing our arms up. And then as we get to the top, we end our inhale, we clasp our hands. And as we exhale, we push gently down until they reach our belly. Right? And then we'll reverse the action again. Now we're going to be breathing just the inhale and exhale, just breathing for 5 breaths. I'm going to tell this to you because there are people on this call who need to know the entire agenda before they can begin the meeting. If you are those people, you know who you are. You don't have to identify yourself to me. And so we will take 5 breaths, right? But as we do this, you do not need to keep count. It is my responsibility to keep count. Right? Just make sure that you breathe fully with the motion of your arms. In other words, that your breath and your body are coordinated with each other. We'll do 5 breaths, and then we'll do another 5, but on the next 5, on the exhale, you will hum. Now, you all know how to hum. All you do is that you just close your mouth and you allow sound to go. Now, sometimes you can give a little bit more oomph in your hum. If before your lips close, that you just do a gentle O. And so if you do an O and then you hum, your sound will come from down further in your belly. And this is what we want to do. We want to come down from further in your belly. And what that means is if you're standing, you want to make sure that you stand tall and that you could feel your especially that front part of your foot, right, on the ground, your big toe pushing in the ground a little bit more than the rest of your toes. If you're sitting, you want to sit tall and you want to feel like the back of your butt, right, is against whatever it is that needs to be against, okay? And that you feel that yourself expansively opening. And even if you're sitting, that unless you're sitting in a lotus position or other meditative position, that your feet will also be on the ground. And if your feet on the ground, make sure that your big toe is pushing into the ground a little bit more than the rest of your feet in that relaxed position. Then after we do the hums, we'll do vowels. We're going to follow the Spanish pronunciation of the vowels, or in this case, they are also the Native Hawaiian pronunciation of vowels. So we begin with ah, and then a, and then e, and o, and u. Okay, one vowel per breath, and then we'll return to the hum, and then one vowel per breath. So breath, and then hum, and then vowels, and then hum, and vowels. But you don't have to keep track, okay? Just follow along. If you can give sound so that in your ears and in yourself, there at least be the resonance of you with me. And if we're in a room full of people, that all you'd hear all of our sounds. Someday, Zune will do that update, right? Someday. Okay, everybody ready? I'm going to do my original sound for musicians turned on. And we take our breath. Just inhale and exhale. Take your time and inhale and exhale. Take the breath in and let it go. Thank you so much. Hey, Heather, you going to join me?
Yep. Thank you so much, Norma. I wondered, one of the things you shared when we were in Hawaii, perhaps to speak to those who care about the science behind breathing or other practices. um, you know, what science tells us about this.
Sure. So, how many of you have a regular meditation practice? You know, or even semi-regular meditation practice. In addition to those who have meditation, how many of you do something like yoga or Pilates or swimming? Okay. So any of those. So any practice in which you are bringing your breath into what I call a lower and slower state. So lower meaning that you're breathing not high in your chest, but much with your full body. So to be clear, your lungs open and close, and your lungs are only in one place. But where you are locating your breath, if you locate your breath lower in your body, then what that means is that you're relaxing your upper carriage. And if you relax your upper carriage, then what happens is that your lungs just open and then they just close. But when you're breathing higher up in your chest, then you're constricting all of those muscles and your breath capacity becomes smaller. There's also the part about the slowness. So we were breathing faster than I would normally breathe during meditation. That's just in consideration of people who are on this call, who do not have a meditation practice, who might end up struggling a little bit with respect to how quickly you breathe. But if you breathe lower and slower in your body, then you become much more naturally oxygenated. And if you're naturally oxygenated, then you will move away from the part of your brain mechanism that we would call the amygdala. Okay, so when we're in a state of anxiety or upsetness or pissed offness, which is like that technical term for before you become full out angry, that when we're entering into the pissed offness stage, your breath will come up higher in your body and it will become faster. And in that state, we are encouraging the mechanisms of who we are to move further and further into our amygdala, into our reptile brain. And in that state, we move farther and farther away from our prefrontal cortex. And it's in the prefrontal cortex that we have the most executive decision. We have the most choice. We therefore have the most freedom. The possibility of freedom is when we are in the fullness of who it is we are, in which you could still feel pissed offness, but you're not experiencing pissed offness. And if we feel pissed offness, but we're not experiencing pissed offness, then you could still hold on, if that is what you want to do, to what it is that you are upset about. But that upsetness will not control you. That upsetness will not be that which you are totally about. You are just David or Deborah or Bree or Rachel or Laurie or Christy, just being a little bit pissed off, but you are not pissed off as the totality of who it is that you are. And in that we have more agency. So what are you curious about? What may you be curious about?
Could you share more about what you mean by spaciousness as a practice?
Sure. So spaciousness means that you're not only making time, but that time has a margin to it. So if I am scheduling my meditation time, that doesn't mean that I'm spacious about my meditation. If I build a margin of time on the front and the end, where I'm preparing to be in the practice of meditation, and that when I conclude my meditation, that I don't have to go directly into whatever else is next. If I build some margin on the other side, then I have given full measure to whatever it is that I'm doing. So to give full measure to whatever it is I'm doing, I need to have spaciousness. We all know what spaciousness is. If you are in a hotel room in New York City or in Tokyo, you will not experience much spaciousness in that room. It is just because how they consider real estate, what they consider to be the space of your abode, is not that large if you're in New York City or if you're in Tokyo. That what is spacious for one person is not as spacious if you have it for 3 people. Space is about physical space and psychic space. So the psychophysical space is very important to consider. Even in a crowded home with many people, which is very modest in whatever it might be. That it is important for people to have like a space that is theirs. And in that space, to clear it of as much clutter as possible. So the smaller my space is, my physical space is, the less clutter I want to have in that space. And if there's less clutter, then in that space, my mind will be less cluttered. My mind will not just be filled with the many things. We are profoundly impacted by the spaces that we are in. That doesn't mean that it needs to be bare and solemn. It could be bright and beautiful, but disciplined in its unclutteredness. It doesn't have to be Zen-like. Well, to be clear, although I'm a practitioner of Zen, my practicality of living in a home that I shared for many years with my mother and my sister and my 2 cats. Yes, I am an unmarried woman who has no children and has cats. I will claim that particular identity at this moment. I am not sad. I'm not anxious or angry. But part of the reason for that is not because of my identity, but because of my practice. My practice of living a life in which I may do many things, but I do not do many things at the same time. You cannot do many things at the same time. This I learned as a 20-something-year-old policy nerd, politically active, although I do not know whether I was a political activist or not. We didn't have that terminology in the place and space that I practiced politics. And my day would be filled from morning to late at night with many things, as a 20-something-year-old can. By the way, for those of you who are no longer 20-something-year-olds, you need to set that aside. That notion that you could fill your moments, all the moments of your awake life, and not have consequences with respect to that. Somewhere around the age of 25 to 27, summertime around there, this is the way your biology works. You will no longer be able to cram for the exam for 3 days without sleeping more than 3 hours a day, take the exam, come back, and party all night, sleep for 2 hours, get up the next day and keep going. And expect that at the next time that you can sleep for 12 hours, that you will return to your original self. That only works until about the age of 25 to 27. And that is if you're healthy. If you're not healthy, then it is earlier in your time, your biological time. If you continue that behavior beyond the age of 25 to 27, without daily renewal, see, this is the key. To have spaciousness, you need to have daily renewal within every 24-hour time period, that there will be enough rest, that there will be enough food, there'll be enough air, there'll be enough quiet in your life, so that you can be at your maximum wellness that is possible, no matter what your human condition may be. So you may have a chronic illness, and you need to be at your maximum wellness of your condition, given that you have a chronic illness. You could be 95 years old, or you could be 7. But what do you need to build into your 7-year-oldish life or your 97-year-oldish life, your chronic illness life or your mostly healthy life. And to understand that, what it is that you might need. And to understand that without having a delusion around that. So we have delusions. To have a delusion is to crowd out the spaciousness of reality, right? So the delusion that the world will, as we know it, will disappear if we do not give 140%, will mean that we are deluding ourselves that while we're doing it, that we're giving 140%. That's what the delusion is. You cannot possibly give more than 100%. That's science and math, by the way. It's math. You do not have more than 100% of 100%. But what the quality of that 100% is will matter in accordance to whether or not you have renewed yourself in every 24-hour cycle. Why is it in the 24-hour cycle? The earth renews itself in every 24-hour cycle. Do you think you can do better than Mother Earth? Do you think you can do better than the universe? Do you think that as a human we can somehow outsmart that? We cannot outsmart that of which is the part of us that is part of the universe. And so therefore, when I am called upon the most to do the most work that is at extremis, it can only be done because I have given a lot of discipline to how it is that I renew myself in every 24-hour cycle for many 24-hour cycles, end upon end, so that when I reach the moment where I am called upon to really put out day after day after day, long hours of that day, that I have a reserve that other people will not have. And even during that time, to take micro breaks. And a micro break for me is like the cycle of about 10 minutes in which I am breathing low and slow, just as we did in our opening exercise. Somewhat slower than that, because I have the practice of being able to do that, which is to say, you cannot take a micro break if you do not know how to do that. And if you have not had the discipline of rejuvenating in the natural cycle of things for many days, many weeks, for years upon end. And if you can do that, then within a 10-minute time period, you will bring yourself entirely back to the zero you need to be to go 100 miles per hour. So, psychophysical spaciousness. I learned you can only do one thing at a time from a master juggler. I mean, the kind that makes a headline in a circus or on the Tonight Show, that kind of juggler. And this guy happened to be good at spinning plates. And he could spin up to 27 plates at a time. That's a lot of plates. And as a 20-something-year-old, I thought, I'm going to learn how to actually, right, do many things at one time from this master juggler. And so I said, how many plates can you spin at one time? And I had just had a demonstration of that. And he said, 1. And I said, no, don't give me the Zen response. I want to know actually how many plates you can spin at one time. I saw you spin 25, So what is the maximum you can spin? And he said 1. And then he explained to me, and then he demonstrated to me. If when he's spinning the plate, he isn't only spinning that plate with all of his attention on that one plate, without thinking about everything else, then what will happen is he will not spin it with all of his intention. And then therefore, as he moves on to the next plate, that plate will falter. And then as he's spinning the other plate, he will be thinking about how he did not pay as much attention to the other plate. And part of his mind and his experiential space will be filled with thinking about how and when that other plate will falter. And then he will not spin the plate that he's in front of with all of his intention and all of his might. And then he will have 2 plates that will not be spun with all of their might. And as he moves to the next third, he will compromise that as well. And so to do only the one thing is to make spaciousness for that one thing. That means that there is math involved. And so the reason that that plate spinner could spin 27 plates is because he only mastered one thing. So even though he could juggle other things, like as in bean bags and balls and bowling pins and all the things that people expect to see in his performance, he really only mastered one thing, and that was spinning plates. And even though he could dabble at many things, really the only things that he could only do 5. He could only spin or juggle 5 things. I believe that he did balls, bowling pins, bean pegs, plate spinning, and one other thing I can't remember. But he could only do 5. And generally, the math works that way across the spectrum of human experience. You have to be very extraordinary and to be at the top of your game to do more than that, which means for maybe a couple years of your life, and that is it. But otherwise, in human experience, you can only hold on to 5 things at any given time. You can only hold on to. In other words, be responsible for 5 things at any given time. And of the 5, you can only really do 3 of those 5 very well, because you've made the space and the discipline for that. You can't make the space and discipline for more than 3 things. And then of the 3 things, only one can you go very deeply on, as in extremely deeply. Now, it's not fuzzy math. It's not 5 plus 3 plus 1. It's of the 5, there are 3, and of the 3, there is 1. Please, friends, what questions might you have? Curiosities that you might have?
We do have some coming in to Slido. Martha, were you going to pick 1 or 2 up?
Yes, I'm actually not right there
Oh, okay.
in Slido. But I think we should do that. Definitely do that. I must say one thing I did not expect is that there would be a math here. And you're absolutely right, Norma. There is a math here, as a reminder of our energy and daily renewal. And not being in slide at the moment, I'm just gonna ask a question that you can choose to answer or not. But my mind was going into direction one. If you were willing to share like a crossroad that led to this work of deepening this practice, like in how this built out. So a crossroad question. And I guess another question that comes up for me is very different, is like, might there be ways to start practicing that might involve a gentle coercion, if you will? Or like, what is that gentle initiation of something that is completely new and can be deepened?
Okay, I'm going to take that question first, and then we'll see whether other questions might arise, or I can go back to the previous one. And if that's the case, Marta, I'll ask you to name the question again. So this is my phone. Okay, it's a flip phone. Oh, this is my interruption. I can't do much on my flip phone. Okay. I can use it as a phone, which is what a phone was made for. I can receive calls and call people. I can actually text on my phone and receive texts. Although, it's uh, you know, basically 999337777 is yes. Okay, so therefore it will take me time to text. And so anyone who's texting me will have to wait patiently for my text. Right? So I can text, and I can't text long texts, which require me to respond in kind but short ways. Kind but short ways. I do not have a smart device on me, and therefore, although I do email, and technically you could do email on this. They do have an app for it, but why would I want to do it on a screen that I cannot open? And so I'm reading the letters as if I need to have a microscope for it. So therefore, I'm not going to do that. Which is to say that our hyperconnectiveness at all times, okay, is a thing that really fills every moment of spaciousness that we might have and trains us to want every moment to be filled. There is actually like a marketing thing that is associated with that, but also the way in which the human biology interacts with technology that actually creates a habit-forming response. And so we'll get up and, if you are attaching to technology within the first 30 minutes of your awakening and 30 minutes before you go to sleep, okay, you will be training your body, right, to desire every moment to be filled rather than for your moments to have spaciousness. You won't know what to do with spaciousness, right? Forget about meditation. Forget about meditation without some app. Okay? If you have to be connected to an app to do your meditation, then you are actually been secured to a piece of technology for your mooring, right? For your mooring. To be able to have spaciousness without feeling like you're floating, without groundedness and connection to all beings and the universe as a whole, right? Right, means that spaciousness for you is akin to being a helium balloon. Right? To be fully grounded, for me to be spacious in the middle of an impending fight, requires a different sense of things. And one of the things that will impede that is I'm unable to cultivate spaciousness just in my inner being. And technology will sabotage that. It will absolutely sabotage that. Now, it doesn't mean that I am like devoid of technology. I'm on the Zoom call after all, right? I can, I can navigate a bit around those kinds of things. But knowing how easy it is, I choose not to avail myself of all of the various kinds of ways. In other words, could I listen to podcasts when I'm in the car? I could. But if I did, what that would do is it would have my mind thinking in a particular direction and therefore not paying as much attention to the road that is around me, which, by the way, could be dangerous. Just saying, it could be dangerous. But to listen to music actually exercises a different part of your being than listening to a podcast. So, now listening to a podcast as a passenger in the car might be okay. Right? So, you want to contextualize the aspects of how it is that you narrate the rhythm of your life. Other questions, Martin? I'm happy to answer the previous question if you would say it again, or other questions in the do you call it a Slido?
We do.
So,
We have several questions that came in there, and
okay.
I think I might weave. There's a theme around several of them, and it's really like practical tips for cultivating spaciousness. And people gave different contexts. Like, I work from home now, and so how do I create spaciousness between home and work? Or I work in, I'm an activist. How do I create spaciousness when there's this overwhelming sense of urgency in our work?
Okay.
That sort of thing.
Okay. So 2020, right? So when you are working at home and you are mostly a screen rat, right? Then there's the 2020 tip, right? Which means no more than 20 minutes staring at the screen and then look away for 20 seconds. 20 seconds, right? 20 minutes, 20 seconds, okay? And then what you want to do actually is to time the 20 seconds is not to look at a clock for the 20 seconds. You want to give yourself a baseline on how many breaths you are filled 20 or 25 seconds or 30 seconds in you. So that as you look away, right, you're not holding your breath for 20 seconds. You're breathing and you just count your breaths. Whatever that might be. For some people, it might be, one breath. For some people, it might be 2 breaths. Some people might be 3 breaths. If it's 4 breaths, you better start slowing down your breathing. Okay? And a breath is like an inhale and an exhale. Okay? 20 and 20. Then every, 60 to 90 minutes, make sure that you get up and you go and do something. Go and get yourself some water, like, that hairball that you see hanging out in the corner, go ahead and, pick it up, right? Go wipe the baseboard, go wash 3 dishes, right? So it's like that getting up and actually physically doing something every 60 to 90 minutes. Go to the corner and pick up your mail, go and fix your bed, right? Whatever it might be, but to do something physical every 60 to 90 minutes is actually very important. Right? Which means that don't continue to listen to people and say, I'm going to put you on I'm just going to turn off my camera and continue to be on that Zoom for as you get up and you go and do something, right? You want to actually just physically unattach yourself to the umbilical cord of hyperconnection, right? Every 60 to 90 minutes. It's pretty typical of a person who works at home to actually work for longer hours than they might work in the workspace. And that is not a good thing on an ongoing basis. So you need to make your own office hours, right? You basically need to, and have some discipline around that, right? And among that, what you're also doing is you're building a discipline among the other people that you're in relationship to not expect a hyper connection. An attorney who is sitting at a bar should not be responding to a client. Among other things, if they're at a bar and they're responding to a client, they might actually have a delusion around how cogent they are, among other things. We might have a delusion around how cogent we are because we have the adrenaline of work that is giving an illusion of how on top of things we are. But we ran out of gas a long time ago. And because we ran out of gas, we give the usual response and not the reflective, considerate, creative response. And reflective, considerate, creative response comes from a blank canvas. And you, as the artist of that canvas, cannot keep painting on a cluttered canvas. You have to actually, right, start with a clean slate. So how often are you cleaning your slate? Same. I change clothes as a part of my routine. I change clothes throughout the course of the day. In Hawaii, the weather will shift. And so therefore, if I'm at home, I can do something that I can't do when if I am in an office or on the road. I can change my clothes in accordance with the weather pattern, which means I'm paying attention to the weather pattern. Paying attention to the weather pattern and not shutting it out means I have enough spaciousness to recognize my surroundings, not just to control my surroundings, not just to control it. Change my clothes in accordance with whether I'm on Zoom or not. Right. So, I will not say that my pants fits my top at the moment. I am practical after all, but my top is certainly not the top I'm going to wear all day. Not this top anyway. So having been in a professional relationship with you, I will after this go and change my top. It also serves getting up, going to my bedroom, taking off this top, hanging it up, taking something else out, seeing whether that is appropriate or not, comfortable or not, clean or not, and putting it on, right? So all of those moments, right, of practical living add to the spaciousness and therefore the rejuvenation of your life. Okay. Hydration. Have I mentioned hydration? Okay. I practice drip hydration. So have you heard of drip irrigation? Drip irrigation is an agricultural technology where instead of just flooding the fields, they basically allow for a steady drip of moisture to enter the plants, whatever the plants happen to be. And they find that type for some plants, not all plants, that actually is the most efficient way. In other words, you actually use less water, but you're never allowing that plant to become dry. You're keeping that plant hydrated. And we happen to be those kinds of plants. We are the kind of plants that are at our best if we are continuously hydrated. And if we're continuously hydrated, then we will not overhydrate and we will not get into a deficit around hydration. Our organs require hydration, and in particular, our brain requires both hydration and oxygenation. And those two things cannot occur without having a steady supply of liquid. Okay. Caffeine does not count as hydration because caffeine also, basically will go in the other direction as well, right? It'll make you go and pee. And so therefore, you have to count it as a 2-to-1. In other words, you have to have 2 measures of water for every measure of caffeine. Okay. Friends, other questions that you might have? Anything at all?
Well, one, I don't know, Heather, what you think, but one that rose to the top was posed by Chuk. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And actually, it deeply resonated with me too, which is, how do we know that we have given 100%? And Chuk was writing, I often struggle in feeling like I could always do more. And if there's anything else, Chuk, that you want to add to that question, feel free to unmic yourself.
Hey, Chuk, if you have more to that, you're welcome to raise your hand and come in with me. So,
Sure. Yeah, no, I just was sort of thinking about this idea of, because you mentioned, you can only give 100%, you can't give more than 100%. And something that I've sort of been thinking about, and I funny enough had a conversation with a friend yesterday about this, is how do we know when we've given 100%? Right? Because recognizing that, and as you've sort of just said, we shift with like our environment, we shift with seasons. And so my 100% today might not be my 100% tomorrow, but how do I know I've still given that 100% without feeling like I could have done more? I've been able to do more. You even mentioned kind of that age thing where it's like, when you're below a certain age, you're pulling all-nighters, and then the next day, in my case, I was like working 3 jobs and volunteering at 5 places, and then you get to a certain age, and all of a sudden you're just like, I worked my 9 to 5, and I'm tired now. But I feel like we should be doing more. So how do you know when you've given your 100% versus when you haven't? Thank you.
Okay. There's some days, there's some moments where I know 100% has been left on the field of battle. Right? And I know that that's the case. In other words, you would feel that moment of not only satisfaction, but no regret. Right? Total satisfaction and no regret. The interesting thing about living a life of spaciousness is that your capacity to give more, even though you can only give 100%, will increase. So it's just to say, you're 100% at points in your life, it looks like this. And then at other points of your life, it's still 100%, but it looks like this. And then there will be moments when you'll feel like there's no membrane between you and other beings. And you're 100%, you did not know that you could give so much at that moment. But it is a delusion to believe that you're a machine and can do that all the time under all circumstances. And so, like, it's satisfaction and no regret is kind of my measures for that. And it's also the part of, I cannot give my 100% if I'm tired, if I'm distracted, if I am filled with self-doubt, if I haven't prepared sufficiently, but I also haven't over-prepared. If I haven't given enough time to this endeavor, I know I won't be able to give 100%. So sometimes I'm in an endeavor, and what I know is that I have to clear more of my own field in order to give more in that moment. I have to say no, or I have to hand off responsibility of things to other people. To have the capacity to do those things allows you to give more. And giving more will mean that you can give like more of your one self, your 100% self. It's like a way that you minimize it is if you are filled your one self with too many things. Then it's still 100%, but it will never feel, you'll never be satisfied in that place. I know that urgency of these times and these moments, which are actually dangerous. This moment is dangerous. It's dangerous for many, many beings across the face of the earth at this one moment. And part of that is about climate change. And one of the impacts of climate change is not only making life on the earth dangerous, is that it also affects how beings in this earth actually behave. So if the beetles and the sharks are getting more aggressive because of climate change, what makes you think that it's not going to make humans more aggressive? And so we are at this moment where life on Earth is dangerous. And so our ability to not just become like the victims of this moment, that's an imperative. That's an imperative. And so therefore, in order to have the most agency in this moment, to rise into this moment of urgency, I need to build enough elasticity to have the capacity to be able to meet this moment and not to just become either a victim or a runaway activist, right? That's caught in my amygdala. Right? So the other part is on a organizational basis, and even for those of us who are not part of a specific organization on a networked basis, we really need to figure out how to be always engaged, but not specifically engaged. And what do I mean by that? Is that every actual emergency response organization, in other words, the fire department, right? The medical emergency department, the way that they are organized is they're organized as a 24-hour emergency operation. But that doesn't mean that everybody works 24 hours. Right? They're organized to be a 24-hour hyper alert emergency operation. And that means they hand off, they take shifts, they are required, right, to be in periods of just rest. They have procedures that will allow for the handoff of a critical situation to another. They build a certain amount of capacity and endurance to be able to go longer than that if necessary. But then they have protocols and procedures to get pulled off the line by other people making that decision, not by them. Right? And if we are moving into that time period when that is the world situation, then we have to organize in that way, not in the way that we do now, where we just move from exhaustion to guilt.
Thanks, Norma. We're rounding towards close. I wondered, we know we want to close with a breathing practice with you again. There's a related question that came in. I don't know if you have time to do both things, but maybe I can tell you the question and you can decide whether you feel like you have spaciousness to do both. The inquiry was around like acknowledging that you have been deeply involved in social change strategy and what you see as the relationship between spaciousness and strategy. And I wondered if that analogy you just offered might extend there too.
So I gave a short response, right, which is to say that strategy is a prefrontal cortex activity.
Mm.
And so therefore, right, I cannot be in my reptile brain in order to create strategy or implement strategy or see that a situation is changing and therefore requires a different strategy. So I need to have my best observation capacity, and observation capacity requires like not a lot of like, like incoming stimulus, right? I need to actually have a state of quiet in myself, even if there is a lot of noise around me, which is what the world is right now. Okay. And so, and to turn off those parts that I can, which is to say that, I don't have to have, the, video feed on my, I don't need to have like some YouTube going, okay, if I am going to have to call strategy, right? In other words, anything that's making noise rather than giving me information. Okay, so anything that's making noise, I want to like actually take to a lower volume or quiet it in entirety and set the conditions for strategy to emerge. Okay, set the conditions for strategy to emerge. So we're going to change up the last breathing practice, and I know that this is like we didn't plan for it. It's not on the runner show, so I wonder whether Heather or Marta might be able to call up some ocean sounds on the audio, if we could do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe with the ocean. And so it's that as we hear the oceans like ebb and flow, right? And the ebb and flow, we're not going to be able to know entirely what that is because of what the audio might be. We want to put the sound on in a fairly large volume, Heather, to basically ebb and flow. I won't call an end to it. So Heather, when you are ready to close, you just close, just bring it to an end. Don't wait for a signal from me. Okay. Can we do that? Okay. So we're going to there's going to be a way in which we're going to actually just like move out, okay, all right, and you're just going to be coming in, right? Here's some.
You can hear it.
We can hear it.
Okay.
Just on your own ways, right? Just move, right? And just make sure that with one motion you're inhaling and the other motion you're exhaling. You could close your eyes on this one and just hear it. I'm going to exit my voice. Aloha. Thank you. Thank you for having me in your space. Mahalo nui.
Wow.
Thanks, Norma. Thank you, everyone. My name is Maricela. You may recognize me from emails and calendar invites that I've sent. We're so grateful that you joined today and are just really also grateful to be able to co-host this session with the Academy. Before we close and can all unmute and share gratitude and farewells or see you next times, just want to share that we will be sending a follow-up, or I will be sending you a follow-up here in the near future with materials from today, including the questions, curiosities, and all things shared in the chat and Slido. And we do have more community sessions coming up as a part of this series. You are, of course, invited. We'd love to see you there. And I'm going to drop a few things in the chat. Also, and especially information about Norma and her work. Again, if we didn't see that earlier in the thread, check out the book that is soon to be published. And we would love to keep in touch on LinkedIn. And I'll drop some more resources as well from Co-Creative and the Academy. Again, all of this I will include in a follow-up email, which will also include the recording from today's session. So I just dropped a lot of things here into the chat. No need to save. I'll send it around soon. And really looking forward to connecting more together in the future in whatever ways that may be. So I'll end there and pass it back to Marta and Heather and Norma for any final words before we all get to say something before we close.
Let's say goodbye to one another. Please come off of mute.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hello, Norma. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you so
Bye.
much. Bye.
Everybody.
Beautiful to see
Carol.
you all.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good to see you, Russ. Thank you, Norma.